point. We've got quite a few people. Should we go ahead with the introductions now or come back to it later?
It's
okay,
fine.
Let's come back to it later. I'll quickly go through. I was to go ahead and talk a little bit about the fund, which I'm not going to do now because I've just had a look at Mark's presentation and it's got everything in it, and I'm just going to overlap. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about Mark here. Mark is the CEO of Fat Beehive Limited. It's an ethical digital agency that builds up websites for charities and other good people. So he set up the foundation, the Fat Beehive Foundation in 2020, and it provides grants for digital improvement to small charities. He has a digital and charity background, having set up one of the first UK's digital campaigning network in 1997, whilst the campaign director at Stonewall, whilst he was a campaign director at Stonewall. In 2000, he launched gay.com, which became the UK's biggest LGBT community website, winning the best consumer website in 2002. He has held elected office in Croydon, where as their digital champion, he won the Digital Council of the Year in 2017. And he is a trustee at the Fat Beehive Foundation, Nudge Foundation, Croydon CVA, and Croydon Pride. That's a whole lot about what I can talk about on Mark. Over to you, Mark, to tell us all about the grant that you're offering to us today.
Right, let's just share screen and okay, the Fat Beehive Foundation. Well, the Fat Beehive Limited is a digital agency that builds websites for charities and other good people. It's been going since 97, which is sort of the beginning of time for digital. It's always been an ethical company, and I started there about 3-4 years ago, and we've moved the company forward a bit. But one of the things I think both me and the founder of the company were very keen on is how could we extend the reach of the company. And we're a B Corp company, we do everything ethically, etc. But we wanted to extend our reach a bit further. So we already do a staff profit share, so the profits are shared with the staff. But we also thought, well, some of the profits of the company should be reinvested back into small charities, particularly around digital, which is an area that I know many charities struggle for funding. So, of course, we didn't know that COVID was going to come along at the time and disrupt everybody's plans. But digital is getting more important. But of course, COVID has made it even more important now. I mean, so many services have to be delivered online, and very many small charities are having difficulty to adapt to that new way of working. So we saw digital is even more important than ever. And I think improving the digital presence can be transformational for many small charities, extending their reach, providing better information, raising money, etc. So digital is becoming increasingly more important, but it's very tough to secure funding. Many grant funders don't fund digital. I think that has changed a little bit in the last year, but it's still quite a tough area to get proper funding. So despite COVID, we managed to set up the foundation last year, and we've given out 3 grants so far. We give out a grant every quarter. It's aimed at small charities, so really want to get, it's only £2,500. We know the amount isn't very much. So we want to make sure we get the biggest bang for the buck, really. So we really want to aim at those charities that, £2,500 grant, the new website would make a big difference to. So very much aimed at charities with an income less than £1 million. So basically the funds come from the digital agency. The staff were very keen that some of the profits go to help smaller charities, and the staff remain very much engaged with the foundation's work, and we ask them the sort of the trustees go to them each year and ask them the sort of charities that they think should be prioritized by the foundation. The foundation is completely separate and independent from Fat Beehive Limited. The company provides all the administration and logistical support, but the trustees are completely independent. They're all volunteers. They have no remuneration from Fat Beehive, from the foundation or from the company, and they just govern the charity and decide on the grants each quarter. And they're solely responsible for how and where grants are allocated. The Fat Beehive Limited has no real say in that, but we do appoint 3 trustees to the foundation, but we cannot form the majority, and the chair must also be independent from the trustees. The reason we want some of our staff to serve on the foundation, I think it gives them good experience of being trustees, and it's good to see where the money is going, the sort of charities we were able to support. So when we, these are the priorities that the staff came up with originally. So sort of human rights, international development, equality and diversity, social justice, refugees, housing, education, art, culture, health and well-being, and prisoner rehabilitation. They're quite a wide range, and what we've seen over time is the trustees are very much keen on supporting those charities, not only that are small, but are probably serving areas where it's more difficult to raise funds for. So I think of the 3 grants so far, one has been on prisoner rehabilitation, Spark Inside. One has been to LGBT refugees, and the others went to a community centre in Wales. So they're the sort of projects that I think tend to be favoured by the trustees, those that are serving very marginalised communities. Very clear what we don't fund, and probably of every quarter we get about 150 applications, and we probably reject 30 or 40 of those because they've put in for computers or iPads or other hardware procurement. We don't fund that. We're very clear we don't fund that. If the application includes if you want some grant money for a new hardware, it will get automatically rejected. We don't cover core costs, so we won't cover the staff training or staff salaries or solely the hosting costs. I mean, we would, if you were doing a new website and the hosting cost was included in that, we would do that, but we wouldn't just pay the hosting for 1 year for a charity. We won't fund any charity that already use or would like to use Fat Beehive's limited services. We're very keen to keep the 2 organisations separate, and so there won't be any compromise in any of the services that people can do, or conflict of interest. So we won't use any of those charities, and they're a very different group of charities that we would work with as an agency to the sort of organisations we want to fund through the foundation. And we won't fund organised set up to promote religion. The application process is fairly straightforward. I've circulated to Nika a video which it goes through most of the things I've covered on here, but it may be quite a good thing that you could circulate as well to the group. It's a shorter and less waffly version of what I'm saying, so it's very easy to digest. So we consider each application on a rolling basis. So for each quarter, all those applications that come in will be considered at the meetings. So we run on the normal quarters, so 31st of March, etc. And then they're considered about 2 weeks after the close of the quarter, and people are usually informed within 3 or 4 weeks of the close of the quarter as well. So we try to get through the applications fairly quickly. The applications must be made online via the website, We don't want people sending in applications, so they must be done online. And the grant can cover the whole of the website cost or part of the website cost, particularly if there's match funding from other areas. We're quite keen to help with match funding. And it has to be within the UK. So the services may be provided overseas, but you need to be a UK registered charity. Like I say, you have to be a UK registered charity with a charity number. That's just part of our conditions from the Charity Commission about funding. So we must fund only other charities. Must be a small charity. We say income less than £1 million. I think the ones that the trustees are more likely to look favourably on are, you know, smaller than that as well. So, you know, a charity with a £900,000 turnover, you know, a £2,500 grant isn't going to make a huge difference, and they've probably got the resources to be able to do that. But you know, we're looking at charities that maybe have less than £100,000, £200,000 turnover, where it really does make a difference to what they're trying to achieve. When you're doing the application, we need a very clear, defined goal for what they're trying to achieve. It may be just a new website, or it may be a digital project, but it's got to be very clearly defined and be viable. I mean, we will look at that and see whether these things are going to be viable, whether they're actually going to be worth doing or not. Obviously, we need to be able to, if you're going to do a new digital product or a new website, that needs time and resources to manage that. So we would be looking to make sure that you have the time and resources and the people in place to do that. We do ask you to include funded by the Beehive Foundation, mainly so other people can see the foundation and make applications, although to be honest, we haven't had any shortage of applications since we've started. It's surprising how easily people find new sources of money. And we would require that the project be started within 3 months of being awarded a grant. And that's basically because we don't want to award a grant and then, you know, a year later it still hasn't started. We want to make sure that the grants are being used as effectively as possible and as quickly as possible. Just a note on the application form, it's worth looking at it before starting to fill it in, because you can't save it in return. The only things you particularly will need is obviously your bank details. We do ask for a quote and supporting documentation for the project. We'd like to see a bank statement less than 3 months old and copies of your most recent annual report and accounts. Other than that, most of the standard questions are what you would expect on an application form, but just useful to have those things ready before you start. We run through all the applications. So I think the typical is about 150 applications a quarter. So we'll go then the initial assessment to make sure they meet the basic criteria for funding. And so that would be rejecting any of those that we're asking for hardware, etc. And then they go through initial shift just to make sure they're all eligible. And then the trustees score the applications based around how useful this is going to be to the charity, the effectiveness, how innovative the project is, etc. So they've all done a scoring system, and then trustees will come together and then talk through those to pick the person who get the grant. In every case, I think so far, the decisions have been unanimous of the trustees. And it's usually 1 or 2 applications that really stand out. So going forward, this marginalised groups, I think, are going to be sort of an area where the trustees are going to be a little more favourable. But a good, clear, defined project is one of that, make it easier for us to score, and making sure the documentation is there and you've got the right people in place to be able to deliver the project. Obviously, we get 150 applications. We can't give money to all of them. But one of the things we have found is there's quite often small charities, particularly where they've been set up by individuals, you know, the death of a child, where they've, you know, a really good project, really know what they're doing, but actually don't have digital skills. So quite often some of the applications come in and we think, well, actually, that wouldn't be the right solution to what you're trying to achieve. So we do offer advice from our staff, and there's the organisation called Digital Candle, which is probably worth circulating as well, because they provide advice to charities about what they should be doing. And quite often, I think, when people don't know what they're doing, I think that initial help about what are you trying to achieve for the website, what are you expecting from the website, how are you going to promote the website, all those questions need to be answered really before starting on a new project. And quite often people don't have, understandably, the skills to do that. So I would recommend Digital Candle to any of the charities before making an application, really, to understand really what your needs are. The website is quite comprehensive. Have a look on the website. There is the short video I sent to Nika, but happy to answer any questions people might have.
Thank you, Mark. Mukesh has his hand up.
Yep. Hi, Mark. It's really refreshing to hear what you're doing and how your foundation is working. I've been sending you stuff on chat, but I've just realized that because I'm a credit union, we don't have a charity number, so we can't come to you. However, I'm representing also today 2 or 3 other organizations which do have charity numbers. And at the moment we're running our website through one of these kind of community websites. So and we really want to be able to make a difference, because I'll give you the name. It's called Disability Network Hounslow, and we are trying to help people who have got partial vision, they have hearing issues, they may be physically able, and there may be other restrictions to them. So we're trying to see how we could improve getting our own website rather than a community website. And I was just thinking to myself, all the things you pointed out. Okay, that's not me. Someone's unmuted themselves. Rogers,
yeah, I've gone ahead and muted him.
Okay, all right, yeah. So trying to see if we can use some of the points you've made for those people who are marginalized in the community. So, and the other important thing is that some of them, since the pandemic, they've become actually quite good at using their iPads and their iPhones, but our community website isn't actually very effective. So looking at those kind of things, that's one of the reasons I was tuning in today, to find out how potentially Beehive Foundation and your grant could actually help an organization such as mine. And the other part of the question is, you said you need a quote. Are you asking us to get a quote from an alternative source to present to you, rather than you just doing the needful? That's my question. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was going to unmute myself. So, yes, look, first of all, I love credit unions. I helped set up Croydon Credit Union, and when I was a councillor, we kept it going because we know the importance of credit unions and the people that they're helping. I'm always surprised there isn't more support for credit unions and more push for credit unions. When people are suffering, quite a lot of financial hardship. There's lots of alternatives out there with high interest rates for people, but very few people seem to promote the credit unions enough. So fully support the work of credit unions. We wouldn't be able to support you without a charity number. That's just the conditions that the Charity Commission put on us, basically, just to make sure the funds were always used for charitable purposes. If we went without, we could have applied with, but it would require us then to do quite a lot of background information and assessments on organisations, which really the foundation at this stage of its development is not really set up to do. So that's why we've opted for the charitable number issue with them, the credit union, for the Charity Commission. But if you're saying you could be with other organisations that do have a charity number, then that's certainly a joint application on that grounds would probably be okay. But I would recommend you first get some advice. And I say a digital candle are very good. And I think the biggest mistake people rush into is that we have to have a website, we have a digital presence, and rush off and produce a beautiful website that they think it looks very pretty and etc. But people, you know, they've missed the target audience, or they haven't thought about how they're going to promote it and the rest of it. So, you know, the website itself is only one part of the whole digital strategy, really. And I think it's worth taking a bit of time at the beginning to make sure that people, particularly when funds are limited, you want to make sure that what you do is, you're doing the right thing for the users that are going to use the website. I'm a trustee at the Croydon CVA, actually, voluntary centre, and we were having debates about their website as well, about who's it aimed for, what's the purpose of the website. And again, people there were talking about we need a new website, but actually without even thinking, what's the website for? Is it to promote the CVA? Is it for service users? Is it for the public? You know, there's a whole range of different audiences out there. So certainly at the agency, we would always encourage people to go through that process of understanding what the website is for.
Sorry to interrupt, but we because we're using a community website, sharing it with other people, we've gone through that process and recognized the digital content and the editorial updates, using mini blogs, gone through all of that scenario. Now it's the question of trying to get funding to be able to actually move from a community website to our own, to then be able to promote some of the things which we're doing, which we can't do because it's a community website. That's right. All.
Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of quotes, then yeah, you'd have to get your own quotes for that. About who's going to do the work for you. We don't. The Beehive Limited don't get involved at all with we don't want any crossover between the work that we do as an agency and the work that the foundation does. So to keep it completely conflict of interest free, we would recommend you to get some quotes, 2 or 3 quotes from local people, some small freelancers, etc. You usually do quite a good job on the websites. And actually, the setting up of a website is not particularly expensive. It can be done fairly cheaply with WordPress and templates and things. So there's usually something out there for people. It's just the sort of ongoing maintenance and keeping updated and promotion as well. So I think that was all your questions. But
thank you very much.
Drop me an email. It's mark@fatbeehive.com. Anyway, and let me have a look at what you're doing. It may not be fundable through the foundation, but we may be able to help in other ways. So, as I say, I'm a big fan of credit unions. So,
right. I will put. You'd like me to add Mark's email ID in the chat? Matt's email ID, Mark, or yours?
Put mine in. Actually, it's fine.
Great. I'll do that.
Come to me.
Mukesh, is that you answered your question? Great. I have a question here from Rogers Orero. He has put it in the chat to me because his connection is quite poor. He asked us, his question to you, Mark, is can you fund international projects through this funding? I mean,
yeah, it's the same. You need the criteria is you need to be UK registered charity, but obviously the international development charities, and they would be funding work overseas, but we would fund the UK charity, and the UK charity would fund the projects overseas. Therefore, the money, it's their responsibility. It's used for charitable purposes. But as long as it's a UK registered charity, then we can fund it. And in fact, actually, we were looking very closely at Ripple Africa, which is a small charity. We're actually going to work with them in a different way, but they're funding projects out in Malawi. So, so we would consider overseas applications as well, as long as they were through a UK registered charity.
Great. I think that I have a hand up by Lodu. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Let me introduce myself. Actually, I am called Das. I am from HelpLink,
Helping.
uh, HelpLink based in Southall Town Hall. And we are in the 12th year now. And I came for this particular just to understand the situation. And we have been very good, 12 years now almost. But last 4 or 5 years going down, down, down. The reason I found was we are still managing with the block spot, and which is not properly updated. And we thought maybe we can get some guidance and support to develop in such a way we'll be able to communicate what we are doing. And secondly, during this pandemic period, last 18 months, we were funded by big lottery. What we realized was before we used to help people with the support of UK Online Center, giving digital inclusion to the people. But during pandemic, instead of we filling the forms for them, we helping them with all these public issues, online issues, we thought of educating them as well. Like even today, I went to somebody's house to help her with the universal credit. So my question is, one is that as an organization, we have or develop or communicate through a website. Other thing is it also possibility for this fund to use it so that people also get digitalized during this pandemic period where they cannot come out, but they don't know what to do. They're stuck. Is there any possibility for that as well?
Okay, so the second question is will we fund digital inclusion training? Again, in Croydon, I did quite a lot of work about digital inclusion and getting people digitally skilled up. But the fund isn't for that. The fund is for digital projects, really. So it really needs to be a website, a digital project from the website that we would fund. Now, if there's a way of that might be something where you use remote working to get people to do digital inclusion via the website, and that could possibly be one way of doing that. But yeah, so the fund would really want to fund a digital project. We wouldn't fund staff time to go out into the community to do digital inclusion. As important as that is, it's not what this fund is set up to do. But if it is a digital project that and you've got a very clear project and you've got to meet the criteria, then yes, do put the application in, and particularly if you can show the number of people that are going to benefit from any of the project as well, because we do like to see, what is the benefit and who's going to benefit from this money. I said it's not a lot of money, but we do want to make sure it gets used effectively and to the best possible way, really.
As you say, maybe it will be a good idea to use the website to provide advice and support and guidance to access to these public services online.
Yes, I think if you could
Particularly,
find a way to
particularly I'm
support
looking at the people who are not known to English. For example, I basically work for a Tamil community. So maybe we need to include the Tamil aspect of, in Tamil. There are many ways we can, as you say, this project can be used in that way as well, advice and support through the website.
Yes, and if you wanted to put in an application to improve the website to do that, then I think that would be very, we'd look at that.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any other one? Sorry, I have a problem with my screen blinking off. Yeah, I hope your question was answered, Naz. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. Any questions for Mark? Okay, I think we've quickly gone through this session. What I'd like to do is, if you need any support with your applications, and if you're going ahead with the application at any point, Ian and myself are here to support you with, having a look over with fresh eyes. So to reach out to us, I will be putting in a feedback on today's session. So we like to bring more sessions like these to you. Understand if you need any further support, do click on this link for you leave so we can get that feedback. I've just pasted it in the chat right now. And I've also put in Mark's email address. If there's any other information that you need from me, I will be sending out the presentation, the video link, and also the update about the digital candle, which is really, really important. And I think will help everyone to go through that particular, the link of that organization. So you can find out more information there.
Can you send this in the email, please?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you send this in the email, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'll be sending that to you post this session once I've received your feedback, so we can analyze how the session went, where you need support further. And yeah, I'll be sending the presentation and all this information through an email to you. You have registered with the right email on the Eventbrite, right?
Yeah.
I'll be sending it to those email IDs.
Okay.
So no more questions?
No more questions. So I say, really, it's I think for any project to succeed is really to work out what you're trying to achieve with the digital project first before you do the application, and then make a very clear application, provide the right supporting documentation, and that literally gets you. If you do those things and make clear application, that gets you probably in the top 20 applications that we will consider. So so it's worth getting on that top 20 list for more greater consideration. But I think most projects fail is because people haven't really thought through what they're trying to achieve. They just want some money to do something digital and haven't really thought through how that's going to work and who's going to benefit from their digital presence.
And I've got a second question because nobody else asked a question, so I thought I'll put you on the spot, Mark. You just led it very neatly into what I was going to ask. That the people who are attending this webinar, many of them are trustees. Many of them don't necessarily qualify like I do as being a techie nerd, both financial nerd and a techie nerd, which is a rarity. But the thing which I find really difficult is that when someone like yourself comes along and presents, actually what we need before we even apply is actually a checklist to say, you know, before you consider doing this, here are some pointers about why you need this, or because if we put our application in, we're not going to be professional individuals who can we can apply for funding and things like that. But when it comes to technical applications, some of the points which you've talked about and alluded to, many of us may not even understand the technology or the words, because at the moment I'm using WordPress. That's easy, right? I can use Wix to generate a basic system. But if I asked 9 out of 10 of the individuals, a lot of them may not say. So I think having an FAQ or a tick list or a checklist for things which you're talking about would actually help us. This is more of a kind of suggestion rather than anything else. But I really do think that listening to you has been really impressive. But I want the follow-up is getting the other stuff which will help me to be able to think through on how I can apply.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking for technical information. In fact, a last application, very small organisation run by lesbian gay asylum seekers in the north east in Newcastle and that area, and so people with not very technical skills at all, but actually they did see that that they don't have any digital presence at all at the moment. And obviously, in time of COVID, connecting people, having a digital presence would be very important to them. So we're not looking for technical applications. We're just looking for people that know what they're trying to achieve with their project. But I would highly recommend everybody, before putting an application in, is give digital. It's free. It's a free service. give Digital Candle a call and just, talk through what you're trying to do, and they may come up with a better way of trying to do that. And I think that will certainly strengthen the applications. But of course, if you're going to put an application for a project, you do need to go and talk to whoever's going to build your project in the first place. So they will have the technical knowledge of that. But I say probably if you're going to, the problem you go to a freelance, say I want your website to do, a new website, they're going to say, what do you want it to do? And you'll say what you want to do, and they will build it like that. But that may not be what the best way of trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So that's why it's worth talking through with somebody first to see whether there are easier and cheaper ways of trying to do that. Websites don't need to be technically particularly fantastic. I mean, they're all basic pages really. So it is really trying to make sure that they're aimed at the right audience and that people can find the information that they need very easily. But yeah, we're not looking for technical applications, but we would expect to see a quote from somebody who's going to build the project that knows what they're doing really.
That's a diamond, whatever you call it. I'm looking through the chat box and I can't see their website or their contact details.
You're talking about
the digital candle. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be in the chat box. I've just scrolled through it.
I haven't put it in the chat box. Yes, I've just put Mark's email ID because I'm trying to focus on the information spoken out here. But I will look through the website and get you details on the digital candle and add it on to your emails. Meanwhile, I have a question actually for Mark. Going back to what you had said previously was your agency also provides some kind of training. So would this be also related to getting our applicants, if they don't reach out to Digital Candle, to approach you to understand better on their needs? Website needs?
What we were looking at some of the applications, and one we thought is some of the staff have volunteer. We give the staff volunteer days so they can we pay them to volunteer for charities for a couple of days a year. And some of the staff were interested in doing that, but I think it makes sense really to go through Digital Candle, so the staff volunteer with Digital Candle, and that's the best way because they're set up to give the advice rather than coming through to us. So initially we did think we could do it there, but Digital Candle are doing all that anyway, and it makes sense for our staff to volunteer for Digital Candle and for people to get the information that way than trying to come via us. So that I would recommend that route more than anything.
Okay, I have put the website. So go ahead.
In terms of like monitoring and evaluating the digital projects, do you have any tips on that kind of thing? Because I think it might be slightly different with a digital project than a normal project in terms of how you would monitor it.
Yeah, well, we haven't actually got to the moment because we've only given 3 grants out so far, and well, with Spark Inside, I mean, they provide a lot of feedback. Part of the terms and conditions is that people do a report, and I mean, the nice thing with digital is you can report on all sorts of things. But we're really looking to see whether the digital project has achieved its aims that it set out to achieve. So, we're not looking, people often make them say, well, my website was very successful because X number of people visiting it. But if they're not the right people that are visiting it, then it means nothing at all, does it? So it's important to make sure that the website, the metrics that you're using to measure are those that you set at the beginning, the sort of what are the KPIs of the website when you set out, and they're the ones you should be measuring its effectiveness really. So I mean, if it is about people getting advice and information, are people getting the advice and information they need? I mean, one way to do that, we'd ask, so we'd expect some sort of evaluation on that. But remember, we are talking with relatively small charities that don't have a lot of resources, so we don't want to make it too arduous. I mean, I run a small charity myself, and you get a grant, and then you've got to produce 120 pages of stats and follow up to show that the grant was effective, which takes more time than the project that they were funding. So we don't want to get down that route really. We just want to understand, when they applied to us, they said this was the aims of this digital project, and we would expect in 6 months' time report with them saying whether it's achieved those aims or not. Now we expect some projects, won't done as well as they would have done, or because of all sorts of other factors. So we do understand the real world that people are operating in.
Yeah, I mean, because it's quite easy to get with like things like website hits. You can quite easily use that, access that through like Google Analytics and stuff. But I guess you want the sort of the qualitative stuff as well in terms of how people have used it. Are they the right people?
Yeah, I think people get very het up on hits and visits and all the rest of that. Like I say, it doesn't. If you're a shop, it doesn't matter how many people walk through your door. It's how many people buy stuff from you, isn't it? So the same as a website. It's not the number of people who visit it. Is did they get something useful from that website? It may be the website. It doesn't get a lot of hits at all, but those that do, it's helping the right audience that it's trying to achieve. That's what we're really trying to look at. Is really. And that's why I say the importance of setting these goals for a website when you're doing at the beginning of the website makes it much easier to evaluate whether the website is being effective or not. We in my day job, we come across charities and the CEO says, "Oh, I'd like the website to be better." And you'd say, "Well, better at what?" "Well, no, just better." Well, people haven't really thought through what they're trying to achieve with a website or a digital project at the beginning. And you can only really evaluate it if you know what the goals are at the beginning. But I say the problem with things like analytics is people get het up on the numbers, and then all they want to do is improve the numbers. And therefore, if the numbers are going up, the website's doing well. Numbers are going down, the website's doing poorly. But of course, that's not the case at all. It could be very different from that. So it's really just understanding those very simple goals from the beginning.
I think there's another question from Naz. He said, how many projects do you support quarterly for Ealing and Hounslow?
So I have in Hounslow.
In Ealing and Hounslow, I understand your query was you support UK wide, but is there any specific number of projects that you support quarterly? Or
we only fund one project quarterly. I mean, the foundation was only launched last year in the middle of the COVID, so its funds are limited in the first couple of years. So we do one project, only one project per quarter. We don't aim for any particular geographical area, and I say so far we've Spark Inside, more of a national charity. One was in the north east, and the other one was in Wales. So we're geographically all over the place, really. So it depends on how good the project is, really, and that's the thing that we're really looking at. How good is the project? How much is this really going to help people? Is it going to change a significant number of people's lives, or a small number of people's lives in a significant way? Both would be good. So that's really what we're looking at. So if it's a good project, it doesn't matter where it's located, really.
I think that answers your question, Naz. So we don't have any more questions or hands raised for today. I think the presentation was quite clear, and thank you so much, Mark, for bringing it to us. Speaking to a funder, it does make a difference, in terms of building confidence to actually put that application ahead. So thank you for joining us today and sharing that information with us and answering our questions.
And I having run a small charity for a number of years, I know how frustrating it is putting in grant applications and the time and effort it takes for that. So we have tried to make the application process as simple and as less time consuming as possible in order to meet our needs. But so we do understand that. And look, I'd love to be able to fund half the charities that apply for funding. And as the foundation grows, I'd hope we could fund more charities. But certainly we do like funding these very small charities where the digital presence really makes a big difference, both to the charity and to the people they're trying to help.
Absolutely. So I hope we have some applications coming to you soon from our end, and we get some favorable responses from your end. Thank you.
Yeah, the application, the next round finishes at the end of this month, so you need to get the applications in before the end of this month So
What date would that be, Mark?
the 30th of June.
30th of June.
Yeah. And that'll
Um,
get considered in the July board meeting. So if you've got an application now, you get an answer in 3 or 4 weeks' time. If you miss that, it'd be three months down the line.
I'll put that down in the email too. 30th of June. Is there a time that the application?
No,
is
as long as they're we'll consider anything that it comes in on the 30th of June. Anything on from the 1st of July
will go in for the
will
following
be
year.
considered in the next round. So it'll still get considered. It'll just be considered in the following round. So the 30th of June would be the cutoff if you want to be considered in this round.
The application form, how do they, do we go onto your website and download that from there? Because that's not a part.
It's all online, so you fill the form in online. So I say there will be some things you need to upload. I highlighted those. You just get those ready when you're doing the application form, so you don't have to go off and try and find them and you know, lose a lot of the stuff you've written. And I always find it's better if if the form is not savable, to type out what you're going to say probably first in another document and copy and paste it in, just in case you lose it and have to start again, because there's nothing more frustrating to have to rewrite something you've already written.
I think that tip does make sense, because sometimes you do end up doing all of the work and not saving it, especially for those who are not tech savvy.
Yeah, the internet goes down or something, or you walk away and it's you don't want to lose your work. So and then it also makes sense to do it because you're making multiple applications anyway to other funders. Then that's useful.
All right, I think we can conclude today then, since we don't have any more speakers asking any more, don't have any more questions for you today. So won't take up any more of your time. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you everyone else for coming today. We've had a few who have dropped out because they've had other meetings, but I will send all the information out to everybody who signed up.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you
Again, and have a
Very
nice day.
And you, thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.